Days. We're in Tupelo, Mississippi at the Antler, an event venue. We're here for 7 days for the troops. And we also want to thank our sponsors again, MedPlus, John Logan, Sprout Insurance, Tim Tubb, and Mitchell Distributing. That's John Hamm. It's our pleasure to welcome now Dean Goble, Director of Philanthropy for Black Rifle Coffee Company. Dean, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So how did you get involved with this organization, 7 Days for the Troops?
Yeah, so I run my own nonprofit, that I run and then with the board and everything. But, yeah, I got a grant that was given to me as the organization. And they flew me out there to get the check and everything. And, I got a chance to meet all the executives for Black Rifle Coffee Company. And they called me a week later, and they're like, hey, can you do that stuff for us? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I love it because I love the brand, what they stand for. So it just kind of made a lot of sense. So. And quite frankly, I was looking for something to do with my life. So I was like, hey, this is perfect.
That's awesome. So this Black Rifle Coffee Company, do they kind of have a focus on veterans as a philanthropy in general?
Oh, without a doubt. If anything, that is what the brand is.
Okay.
So, serving those who serve is the model that we got for it. Yeah. But every single executive meeting, every meeting that we have is, hey, what are we doing for the military or veterans, first responders? And that is like incorporated into everything we do. So whether it's sales, marketing, you name it, there is always something we're doing to give back.
Yeah. And, one thing I think, Dean, we should keep in mind is that the majority of our veterans these days, as our precious World War II veterans are dwindling in numbers, and our Vietnam, Korean vets are up there in age as well, they volunteered. They weren't conscripted into service. They weren't drafted. They volunteered to go serve their country. And so when they fall upon some sort of difficult circumstances, it's completely appropriate and proper that we help them out.
100%. And so from the philanthropy standpoint in Black Rifle, I tell everybody I got the best job at Black Rifle because what I get to do is work with amazing nonprofits like Purple Heart Homes and simply help them do what they're doing better. Because it helps us as an organization, helps them as an organization, but most importantly, helps the community because these is where the expertise lie. So they know the issues that are affecting veterans. They know the issues. They know the resources they need. Most of the time, they just either don't have the reach or the financial capability to assist. And that's where Black Rifle can come in and be like, hey, how can we complement your efforts?
Yeah. And our government, of course, has a suite, a portfolio of services that are available to the veterans, but you can't absolutely address and cover every single thing, and I'm not sure we want them to. It makes more sense, does it not, for the private sector to step up and fill that void?
100%. I'm a big Reagan guy, so, I like limited government.
Sure.
And I love the idea of empowering private nonprofits to be like, hey, this is what makes sense because, they live here. They know it. There's no way some person all the way out in D.C. is going to be like, hey, this is what's best for the people here in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Well, no, I guarantee you Purple Heart Homes here probably understands their community extremely well. We just need to help them do it better.
Yeah.
Get them that bigger microphone, et cetera.
This organization, 7 Days for the Troops, is a bit unique in that it was founded by a veteran, a disabled veteran.
Yeah, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, right over there. Yeah, he was nice enough to buy me a beer last night when I flew in. Yeah, great people. I just met him for the first time, and then we're already talking about, hey, man, how can we complement each other? How can I help you out, help you continue to do what you're doing better?
Yeah. It truly is awesome. What about this venue and the setup here with all the patriotic red, white, and blue? This just makes you proud to be an American and appreciate our veterans.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And the first thing I notice is, the POW, chair. And I love seeing that symbolic and that representation, the red, white, and blue. And then if I'm being frank, is the countryside. I'm a country boy, so unfortunately I'm forced to kind of live in a city these days. And so as soon as I get out and get to see some green, I'm like back in my happy place, So it's so nice to kind of just get out of the city, get to be around some folk that know and understand and are passionate about what they're doing and take all this very seriously and respectful on how they do it. You can just look at our background. That tells you everything awesome. You need to know about this organization.
Yeah. Are you starting to see perhaps, Dean, an uptick, an increase in the interest by the private sector, such as Black Rifle Coffee Company, to get involved and to try to help out our veterans in this respect?
I do, yeah, especially because, global war on terrorism is quote unquote over, and so my generation, thus who have served there for a very long time, we're done. Now granted, there's other very strategic objectives we're trying to achieve as a government, but there's a lot of guys and girls coming home, and it's kind of like, I use the comparison lightly, but it's kind of like our own little Vietnam. So people are coming back. There's a lot of issues that need to be tackled. And luckily, what I've seen is an uptick from all organizations, really great organizations, who are like, hey, how can we help those people? Okay. And I've seen it every day, the amount of people who want to collaborate, get involved, even putting like competitive nature to the side because they all understand this is a great common goal to get behind. Yeah. And it's just been so enlightening to see from the private sector.
Yeah. Have you or any of the executives in your company, have you had any direct contact with some of the veterans that have been assisted by your efforts?
Every day. Okay. Yeah. Some of the what I like to hear is the testimonies. Yeah. So it's one thing to just be like, here's your check, best of luck. But when you get to hear back from some of the organizations that like, hey, we got this guy a free, mortgage-free home, because he was a homeless veteran and needed this assistance. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of stories that I like to get back and then highlight. We're very respectful on names and stuff. Some people don't want to be highlighted, but we really like to see the testimonies and the direct impact we're making.
Does that serve as inspiration, as a motivator to do even more?
Oh, 100%. This is the thing that keeps, every time I'm just like, hey, I am tired, and then and then I'm fortunate enough that somebody will come up and be like, hey, you changed my life. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'll keep going, Awesome. So that is literally what just drags me back into this time and time again, is when you get to see the impact you're making. And it's, it's not superficial. It's very tangible, and you can just see their eyes and the passion behind it. And and selfishly, I see that as like a huge reward for my own passion and purpose in life.
Yeah. We've had, don't want to get political on you, but we've had obviously a change in administrations. You mentioned earlier that you were a Reagan guy, and man, no one loved the U.S. military more than he did. As I recall, one of the first actions upon being elected in his first term was to host a dinner at the White House for members of the military and veterans that they hadn't been in there in a while, that they just seemed to have been forgotten by the Carter administration. But we've got President Trump, who is a big fan and friend of the veterans, and of course nominates and was confirmed, as you talked about, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, a veteran himself, who hit the ground running to do good things on behalf of our Department of Defense and our veterans. Do you feel like the attitude in the country overall is sort of changing more positively with the change in administration towards the veterans?
I think so, yeah. I think the voting spoke for itself. I think that gave you the statistics and what the people were thinking. And I think that spoke very loudly across where we needed to be as an organization or as a country. Mm-hmm. And so with that, too, I've seen changes that I agree with, and other people may not agree with, and that's fine, but that's the beauty of our democracy. But just being able to, see people in the military like, hey, I'm going to re-enlist. I'm going to keep going now. I can see that change. It's no secret that the recruiting numbers were down. Right. And now, they're starting to come back up. Yeah. So there's those little statistics you see that are coming across the board that are really starting to uptick, and you can kind of see that movement and that change. That's positive for the U.S. military, in my humble opinion.
There's no shame in being patriotic and showing your support and respect for the people who wear the country's uniform.
100%. Could not agree more.
And it seems like we abandon that to some extent, and in fact, in many circles, there's a certain degree of contempt for those who make that sacrifice to wear our uniform and in fact look to just change the situation where perhaps we don't even have a military. I don't really know. There's some extreme views.
Yeah, you're going to always had the extreme views, and and I have great friends with various viewpoints on it, but we always collectively, except for you get the people who are way out there, but for the most part, we're just like, hey, we need to do more. And I always like to throw in the first responders, our police fighters, our policemen and women, the firefighters out there. Because I don't think they get enough love. A lot of focus is usually on veterans in the military, which is rightfully deserved. And being a veteran myself, I feel like I can say, some of the police officers I spoke to out in Chicago and bigger cities, they've seen a lot and they've done a lot.
Yeah.
And so taking care of them, because that is a very tough job that can have a lot of politics behind it.
Nobody else is going to come to your aid, I guarantee you that, the way they do. And the same with the U.S. military defending the country. Dean Goble, Director of Philanthropy for Black Rifle Coffee Company. Thanks for coming on, Dean, and thanks for all that you guys do for our veterans. Appreciate it.
Of course, sir. Anytime.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Good job. Folks, we're stepping aside for a break right now. Coming back with John Galena, co-founder Purple Heart Homes.